Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood personal trainer. Who else but Tommy else? This is my podcast. Welcome to it. Today, I thought I would talk about your mental health and, in particular, crisis situations. Um, Mental health obviously can play a very big factor in your goals that you're trying to achieve, whether it's through diet or exercise or both, regardless of whatever the goals may be. Um, Rarely does life just swim along perfectly when you're on these types of missions. And one of the things that's most likely to swerve people off of the path to their goal are the unexpected things that happen in life. And some of the things that are very emotional, breakups, loss, of any kind, whether it's through death or whether it's a relationship of a friend or a loved one or a spouse or whatever the case. I mean, these things, trouble with your children, trouble with your parents. I mean, there's just so many things that can factor into your emotions. And when your emotions take over, it can be very easy to slip off of what you're doing, because for so many people, and I include myself in this, there's a certain level of comfort in eating the foods that you like. And that's known in some circles as emotional eating or comfort foods, which are all kind of the same thing. And so I bring it up because this past week I had something that really had knocked me off my feet and really left me in a bad place for just a couple of days. And couldn't sleep, lost my appetite. And so I thought I would talk about, what do you do when these things happen? You know, So here's the thing. There's things in life we just can't avoid. Things that are going to happen that are going to take us off guard, and we have to deal with it somehow and get through it. And so sometimes you need to reprioritize certain things. And as much as I will put emphasis on a day-to-day basis of your nutrition and your physical fitness to give yourself the maximum amount of health in your body, there are times when it's okay to allow yourself a little time to grieve. If the trick in all of this is to just not let it completely sweep you away from everything that you've worked towards. So in my case, this last week, I got some news that I wasn't, I was surprised to get, and yet I wasn't surprised to get, but it was still a very heartbreaking thing. And it cost me sleep. It made me lose my appetite. And honestly, the only thing I really wanted that was going to make me happy at that point was Portillo's. Because that's my happy place. I mean, it's not just the food, it's literally the place itself. Like, I can go there and sit by myself at a booth and have some and just, feel comfortable, and I feel better. And I understand it. Now, is it healthy? No, not in the least. There's nothing healthy at Portillo's. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. But even their salads are like north of 2,000 milligrams in sodium. So, I mean, like, even if you try to go on the healthy route, you're still staring down a long barrel. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's okay to give yourself a little time to get through the worst of it, you know, the initial news of whatever it is, and then processing how you plan to deal with this. And if that's not something you're good at or you're not used to doing, I will always and forever highly recommend therapy and talking to a licensed therapist. I have done it since 2009. I was on and off throughout periods of times in my life previous to that. But I would say as of 2009, I've been pretty consistent about that. So that would be 20. No, that's not 20. Uh, well, it's been a while. It's 2025. So, um, but I allowed myself to have a little leeway that first couple of days because if you really are trying, if you really it's kind of a tug of war thing because having the food feels better in the immediate moment, but in the long term it can actually exasperate your negative feelings, your sadness, your despair or sorrow that you might be feeling in the time. So it's not that I necessarily recommend it. I'm just saying that I wouldn't beat yourself up over it if you stray during that period of time. You know, some people can do it, and ultimately, it is the better way to go if you're able to still eat clean because you will have your gut health will be better, which will affect your brain health, which will affect your level of anxiety and sadness, which will affect your ability to make decisions that are based more out of practicality rather than emotion. So, I guess all I'm saying here is that it's okay to have a little time and give yourself a little break to help with that. Now, at the same time, let's say that you do break on the diet, and because that's kind of what I've been focusing on here. One of the other things of this, though, is that it can also make you just be like, "Well, I'm not going to work out today. I just don't have it in me," which I completely understand. And again, for a few days, it's fine. Give yourself that time. But on the other hand, exercise really does help with, like therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists and all of them will all tell you that working out is one of the best things you can do for yourself for a couple of reasons. One is that during that time, more often than not, you're so focused on what you're doing that it takes your mind off of things. But if it doesn't, it at least helps you release some of that anxiety out of yourself so that you don't bring that with you home at the end of the night or into your sleep and in your dreams and stuff. I historically have had very bad dreams for most of my adult life. And the nights that are the best for me are the nights that I have worked out earlier in the day, and the cleaner I eat, the better I get through those nights. So, so it's to your benefit to do it, but again, don't feel like it. You can't, like because if you start forcing yourself through that, you're just you're adding more stress to yourself. And honestly, when you add more stress to yourself, it can start to affect your cortisol levels, which affect your recovery from your workouts and increase your amount of fat storage. And you just have a fatigue and a low drive. It's to work out. You just don't want to do it. And that's kind of when people say, well, screw it, like I deserve to have this meatball sub or whatever. That's me saying that because I love a meatball sub with extra cheese at Subway. But the honest to God truth, though, is that physical activity really does, and it releases endorphins and dopamine, and it does help reduce your stress and boost your mood. And the more consistent you can be in it, also gives you some self confidence and some structure, which can be essential when you're trying to deal with emotional struggles. Even something as simple as a 10 to 15-minute workout, like if you can just jump on the elliptical for 15 minutes, like that's something like I've had days where like, look, I do not want to work out. I just don't. I can't deal with it right now. But I know that if I spend even just 15 minutes on the elliptical, it's going to make a difference and I will feel better when I go to bed at night. I put forth at least that much effort. It's both mental and physical. Part of it is the physical drain on your body. The more you drain yourself, the better you're going to sleep and the deeper you're going to sleep. But there's also something you said about feeling like, hey, I did do something, because sometimes then you beat yourself up even more because you're like, well, this happened and now I didn't even work out today and then I ate like crap, and then you start beating yourself up on that and now you're just adding to it and stuff, missing multiple workouts in a row, drastic changes in your eating or sleeping, and then that's when you start feeling guilt or shame, you know, because tied to your fitness progress. So, you just it's okay just like for a few days to lower the bar and just kind of take care of yourself, and just you set small goals. Like I said, like just do 15 minutes. What you could walk on the treadmill 2 miles an hour for 15 minutes, just something to be able to say, hey, I did something, and honestly, you will feel better for doing it. And then even if you don't do a full workout, if you can kind of do what they call like anchoring habits or habit stacking, where you pair things with activities that are routine throughout your day. So, like, let's say that, like, every time you have a cup of coffee, you do 5 or 10 push ups or something like that. It's like you find one thing and then set a goal that's like every time I do this, or like every time I go to the bathroom, I got to do 15 squats, or something like that. And if that's all you do all day, then it was something and you exerted more energy than you would have had you not done anything at all. Um, Again, talking about it, whatever the situation is really important. If therapy's not your thing, I hopefully you might have somebody in your life, a friend, a family member, confidant of any type. I mean, as a trainer, and I believe I've talked about this before, but I mean, I certainly, hear on a regular basis from all of my clients about what's going on in their lives and they share it with me. So anybody who you can talk to, uh, especially a third party that's just not involved and doesn't have a dog in the fight. You talk to family members or friends and stuff, and then you're gonna get some biased opinions on it and stuff. But this is why people talk to the bartender and their hairstylist and their personal trainer. I hear about everybody's problems all the time, and it's fine. I consider that part of good health. And so I think that that's kind of part of the service that I offer. Uh, but again, while it's okay to kind of just stray for a few days just to kind of get over a hump, you do kind of need to watch yourself. And this is again where I come in as a trainer because I can be like, okay, look, depending on the severity of the circumstances and stuff like that, we've had so many days. Let's start getting back on track now. Okay, we had our time and now it's time to start working on things because it's so easy at that point to fall into a rut and you're just going to get even sadder and more depressed if you feel like with whatever happened in your life to initiate this, your progress has now begun to your progress with your health physically and nutritionally has gone by the wayside, and then you feel like you're starting all over again, and the mountain just seems to start getting taller and taller. So this is where having a personal trainer can be a very good thing to have, and it's important that whoever you're with is sensitive to these things, you know, And that's just kind of a person by person thing. For me personally, I'm extremely sensitive to these things. I've always been very like an open nerve in a lot of ways. I'm very easily affected by things that happen in life, relationships especially. I hold relationships as one of the most important things in my life. And when something happens where one is disturbed in some way or another, and I feel like I either don't have any control in the situation or I don't have any way to fix the situation and I'm just sitting on my hands, it can feel very desperate, it can feel very helpless, and that can induce a lot of anxiety. So again, then if you start eating, let's say you start eating, whatever you want. Let's say I go to Portillo's and I just get whatever I want. Well, the high sodium levels in that will then get your heart rate going up because it's going to raise your heart blood pressure and your heart rate. And then if you go to bed with that in your system, if your heart rate's already going at a high pace and you go to bed, then your mind tries to match the physical feeling of your heart rate being fast and will conjure dreams that are stressful that match the feeling of what you are physically feeling. And so and then now you're having nightmares, and now you wake up and you're not well rested, you are upset, and then it's hard to get into the next day, which now you're going to once again go and repeat the process and have the emotional eating and breaking away from working out and so on and so forth. So it's fine to take a moment, take a few days to catch your breath, find something that helps get you through that period of time, and then you need to then dig your heels back in and say, okay, I got to get back on track with this. And it's ultimately going to give you a clearer mind that's less influenced by your emotions. You'll make smarter and better decisions as far as how to deal with these situations because you have been eating clean and giving your body the nutrients and everything it needs to reduce your stress and reduce your chances of, say, mood swings and things like that. Now, there's certain techniques that you can incorporate too that I'm big on. There's breathing techniques. I mean, I know a lot of people have a hard time with the idea of meditation stuff. For those people, I highly recommend guided meditation. It's what got me to be able to start doing it and continue doing it. There's tons of free guided meditation stuff on YouTube and things like that, or there's apps like Headspace and things like that. It helps because if you don't know how to meditate, it's good to have something that guides you along. Put on some headphones, quiet your place, or find a little spot in the place in your house or wherever where you can be by yourself for like 10 or 15 minutes in a day. Some people do it multiple times a day. It's up to you. But even if you just do it once a day, I gotta say, it does kind of reset you. It took me a long time to finally take the time to just go and do that, but it does work, for me at least. But journaling is another thing. I have been keeping a journal since I was in junior high, on and off. I mean, I've had some good 3 to 6 month stretches where I didn't write anything at all. And then I'm writing like every day for a few months. But getting it out helps. Even if you're already talking to a therapist and everything, it's like you'll always be more truthful to yourself, even more so than with a therapist. You should be completely honest with your therapist and tell them everything you possibly can, because the more information they have, the better that they can help you with. But even if you're not comfortable with that, journaling is a place where you can put everything on the table and know that nobody else is going to see it, and it gets it out of your system, and you can say anything that you want without any sort of judgment. So it's good to do that. Now, the gratitude practice of this whole thing to kind of shift the negative self-talk and things is very important. So, and I know that it might seem like an overdone thing these days. You got to practice gratitude. You got to have a vision board and all that stuff. And it's like everything from the book, The Secret, and everything, which I am a big fan of. The Secret, The Power is one of my favorite books by Rhonda Byrne. But at the end of the day, like, so for example, today I went to the Cubs game with a buddy of mine, and we were driving on the way there, and I was telling him how I'm turning 46 this year. And he was saying, he's like, isn't that depressing? And I just said, you know what? When my birthdays come around, I look at it as, yeah, I'm 46, but I made it. I made it 46 years. I didn't trip over a rock and fall off a cliff or walk in front of a bus or whatever, I've made it. I have too many friends who have just passed on too early, who are no longer with us already. And I'm only 46, and I'm somehow have outlived those people. And I'm grateful for that. And I told him, I said, I'd rather be 46 than not, you know? So I'm happy to add another year, because the alternative is no good. So, it's just something as simple as that, and I told him, I said, look, yeah, I'm turning 46 in a month, but you know what? It's Sunday. It's a beautiful day. We're going to Wrigley Field. We're going to see the Cubs play. I'm hanging out with two of my friends that I've known since junior high. You know, I'm not, in a war as a soldier. I'm not, destitute and living on the streets. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that you can easily point to be positive and show gratitude for. So it's not hard to find, but the process of just taking the time, first of all, to just think about it and acknowledge it. But if you really want to take it to the next level, sit down, and I know this sounds corny, but you sit down and you write out a list of everything you can think of to the most minor degree. The fact that I have running water, I have electricity, I have air conditioning. I mean, like, those sorts of things. I mean, it may seem like a small thing, but there's people who don't have that stuff. And I do. I live in a very nice apartment. It's not a luxury apartment or anything like that. I've lived here 26 years, though. I've lived here longer than I've lived in any other place, and there's a reason. It's because I love where I am. I love the location. I love the people who live in the building, and I can point to all of those things, and I can make the list. Now, there's some science to be said about writing a list out physically versus, say, put it into, a Word document. But it doesn't matter. Either way, it's going to help. But there's something about some science out there about the actual physical writing of it out. I think it makes you focus on the feeling a little bit more. And so you are able to utilize that and maybe get a little more out of it. But either way, it's still very important. So those are some things you can do also to help kind of pull you out of your situation. But I think this goes without saying for most of my clients, because they know me enough to know that they can tell me anything and share anything, and I'm very honored and grateful for that. The fact that they feel comfortable. I don't know that I have any clients who don't feel comfortable telling me about things like that. And um if you don't have a trainer or whatever, if you can find anybody, and again, if you don't have somebody in your world that way, I mean, not everybody's that lucky. And if that's the case, honestly, therapy has become more and more available, especially with things online. Now, I will say I do believe, and as much as I will do personal training online and stuff like that, I still believe that, like, between that and therapy, both are much better to do in person. There's just something about being in the same room with somebody, being able to really look them in the eyes and not just through a camera, and share that energy with each other. So, but if it's not an option, doing it online is still better than nothing. And it sometimes just helps you put things in perspective and possibly give you some tools to be able to deal with whatever crisis you're going through. And all of this is to say is that you can do these to try to help yourself not let life take you completely off the rails when it just pulls the rug out from under you. So I hope this helps. I hope this is just something to keep in the back of your mind, you know, and if sometime in the future something comes up, maybe you can come back to this episode and listen to it, and maybe it'll be of some help. And even if you're not my client and you need somebody to just sound off of, I will make myself available to anybody, because I don't want anyone to have to feel the way I have felt with many situations in my life. And I'm always an open ear to people. I'm happy to listen. I'll give my opinion if it's wanted, and if not, I can just sit and listen. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you don't need somebody to give you an answer or tell you what to do. You just want someone to hear you, you know? And that's why a lot of people go on social media and just, you know, sound off on something, because they just want to feel heard. They want people to know, you know what? I'm not okay right now. And it's okay. It's okay to not feel like you're okay, you know? But if you can do it in a productive way where you can share it with somebody, and again, if all it takes is just telling somebody about it and it's going to make you feel better, then great. If you're open to hearing some criticism or some helpful hints as to ways to deal with it, then fantastic. But give yourself that chance, you know? Don't be afraid to reach out. And again, even if you're not a client of mine, TommyEllis@gmail.com. Hit me up. Tell me your story, you know? And if it's something you want me to comment on, I will. If it's something you just want me to read and listen to and, you know, reply to, I will. You know, I get it. I've been there too many times, and I just really know and appreciate what it does to have somebody to unload on. So just know I'm here. So with that, thank you again for joining me for another episode. And it's July still. As of today, it is July 20th. And I am running a special right now where I'm doing the nutritional guidance free for the month of September, for July. And it's been a long week, like I said. For July, it's a $400 value on its own. It's $300 usually when you do it in combination with personal training. But either way, you're getting a $300 to $400 value for free if you do this before July 31st or on July 31st. So if you're interested in doing a 12-week training program and getting your nutritional guidance included with that for free, hit me up at TommyEllis.com, or like I said, TommyEllis@gmail.com. And again, even if you're not a client, if you just need somebody to sound off on and unload on, I'm here. So hit me up. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate it, and I hope that this was helpful to you. I will be back in a couple weeks, as usual. And as always, I, of course, have been who else but Tommy.